Welcome to the Community Connections podcast with Jeff Newgard. Jeff is the president and CEO of Bank of Idaho. As an experienced community leader with a demonstrated history in the banking industry, he is fascinated with authentic and real conversations and establishing long-term relationships. Community Connections with Jeff Newgard podcast is Mr. Newgard's opportunity to do just that. Connect with local business owners and leaders to hear their stories. Jeff's slogan is "People Bank with People." With that, sit back, relax, and listen to the unique stories of your neighbors, colleagues, friends, and community connections. Today, our guest is Dr. Troy Brumfield, Chief Medical Officer at Mountain View Hospital. Enjoy this community conversation as Dr. Brumfield and Jeff discuss local roots, unique stories, and Troy's amazing journey.
Well, Dr. Brumfield.
Yes.
And I just know you as my friend. But Chief Medical Officer for Mountain View Health Systems. Mm-hmm. So what a pleasure it is to have you join me today. Thank you for your time.
Oh, you're welcome. It's a nice time to spend with you.
Oh, I know you're very busy. But one of the reasons I wanted to have you here is because I'm so inspired by you and what you've been able to accomplish. You came from very humble beginnings. Yep. Anybody that says, well, I can't do it because, I grew up in a trailer park, what would you say to that?
I'd say you can. You can.
Yeah.
I grew up in a trailer park. So,
yeah, you did. What I said earlier is that, you grew up in a big mansion, right?
Yeah, real long and narrow.
That's right. Yeah, and so tell me what that was like growing up humble.
Well, as kids, I don't know if you really know how humble you're raised,
Yeah.
And so for us, it was, a lot of it was happy times, especially honestly in a trailer park where you get to know all the kids. You spend a lot of time outdoors and have a great time, but it's not until you really start engaging with the world through school and having friends that are outside of that area that you're living that you start to recognize those distinctions, and those differences, and I think everyone takes that in for whatever meaning that is differently.
But you had a good childhood.
Yeah.
I mean, not easy.
Yeah, it wasn't easy. We have a lot of family rife and issues there that caused a lot of complications being raised. But my mom and dad were really not ready, I think, for the family that they had, and they had their struggles, and then it bled down into the children.
Okay.
So my father and I probably weren't really the closest of friends, and matter of fact, we're estranged for quite a long time. But,
oh, were you ever able to get a relationship established?
Yeah, I tried as I got older.
Yeah.
As I understood the perspective of fatherhood and those things. He didn't really change from the person he was. He had an addiction issue that really kept him at that level.
Yeah.
And so I did, and I was able to kind of reconnect a little bit. He was able to meet his grandkids and before he passed. But so I would say it was a positive thing in the end.
Yeah. Well, and you described you were the family. You're the kid that got the Secret Santa. And
Every Christmas we always got the ding dong ditch with gifts outside, and we were definitely the family that the neighborhood always reached out to help during those kind of holiday seasons.
So you really saw a caring community then.
I did.
Too.
And I did, and it was nice to know that you were loved like that. I never took it any other way than that. And when you're really young, you don't really recognize the differences of that. It's not until you get older that you understand how much your mother really was just a saint to get you through that and to go through those experiences. And, my mom, when we finally moved away from our father, I believe her first year of us living together under her roof in a trailer house out on her mom's property, she made about $7,000 that year. And that's what we lived off.
That year?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow.
And that was working 3 jobs.
Oh.
So,
Wow.
So it's kind of and I was the oldest. My 2 older siblings had moved on. You know, at 16 they were out of the house. And,
Yeah.
you know, because we just weren't really a home that, you know, those kind of things happened. But so I was 11 at that time, and I was the oldest kid, and
Wow.
went and got a job moving pipe.
You did?
You know. Yeah.
To try to help out?
Yeah. Well, I had to pay for everything myself at that point. So any school books, clothing,
Yes.
all of that I was on my own. So
Yeah.
so I started moving pipe pretty early in my life.
Yeah?
Yeah.
So you've been working a long time?
Yeah. So perspective-wise, you start to wonder if it's work now compared to then, but but it is
A little different kind of work.
Yeah,
wasn't it?
it's still that mental effort. You
Yeah.
know, that fortitude.
And so as you were growing up, you couldn't help but notice other families and other ways people were living, and what really inspired you to want more?
Well, I think in my immaturity at that time, it was more, I saw there's a clear difference, and I wanted to understand how I could get that difference.
Yeah.
And so, you know, education, those kind of things weren't really the forefront of our family kind of dynamics. So, you know, that what prompted me to search for a life outside of where I was, and that led me into the Marine Corps.
Yes.
You know, that led me to serve a mission and get some experience in my young adulthood that really maybe opened my eyes more to the world.
Yeah.
And that really drove kind of my desire for education at that point.
Yeah. Well, thank you for your service too in
Oh,
the Marine
no problem.
Corps. Of course, you couldn't pick anything light.
No, I figured if I'm going to do it. Well, my dad was in the Army. My brothers were in the Army. I was like, I'm going to go do the Corps.
Yeah. Tell me what that was like for you. What changes did that have in you?
Well, it taught me that enduring things that feel impossible is you're capable of doing that as a human.
Yes.
Simple as that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And that your attitude you bring to those experiences when you're there matter, and they make all the difference.
Your attitude.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So they teach that in the Marine Corps.
Well, they teach a lot of things in the Corps, but that's just something you either learn or you struggle with if you stay in. That's for sure.
Yeah.
I did, and I opted out after my time and went to college, but yeah, they definitely are challenging you physically and mentally every moment.
Yeah. So then you go on for your mission,
Right.
and tell me what you learned at that.
Well, what I learned there, I think, was mostly the human experience, and that sharing a moment with somebody, even though you may not understand or comprehend or even agree, it brings you closer to humans. It ties you in a way that I think really has led me to be the kind of leader I am today.
Yeah.
And that the people I work with is what matters in the long run, you know. And to see their growth and see their potential and see them become something more than when they started is all the reward you need to stay in this business. You know? Yeah. Or at least my business. But,
Yeah.
And I learned that there, you know. I learned that there, you know, language barriers, just whole cultural differences, spending a moment just trying to share a moment really does matter.
Yeah. And so where was your mission?
Well, I served in Virginia.
Okay.
And I served in the deaf community, so I learned how to sign. And
Wow.
to work with them specifically.
Oh, fascinating.
Yeah.
Well, you still bring that today. I mean, I still see that in you. It's about relationships.
Right.
One of my favorite things about you is you say, "Hey, my name's Troy." It's never doctor. And the least favorite thing for you is start asking you what your position is, start talking about what kind of doctor you are, and
Right.
I can just see you start to go, start to squirm around a little bit.
Yeah, it makes it hard to be able to connect on a human level.
Yeah.
You know, because then layers start to be put into that. You know.
Yes.
Insecurities in the person I'm talking to, insecurities in me. All of a sudden, you just start to have this kind of barriers start to build that you know you're going to have to work through, where if you had time to nurture a little bit longer, maybe that wouldn't be an issue.
Yes.
You know? And I think especially in the healthcare profession, and for me that I've done, I'm going on 22 years of caring for patients and families. You know, what I found is that it's still those human connections that I value the most, and that also help me achieve success with my patients. And so when I start to see those things kind of come in, you know, it makes it hard.
Yeah.
Especially at a social setting, you know.
Yes. Yeah.
Which is very hard, you know.
Yeah. Well, I admire that about you. You're always so down to earth and just you.
Yeah.
And a lot of people let those titles and let those things go to their head, and that's never happened.
No. Yeah.
So the other thing that I am inspired by you is that this idea of risk and betting in yourself.
Right.
I mean, you've done that your entire life. I mean, really starting at 11, moving pipe, you're betting on yourself. You're going to make life better. You're not going to sit back and just cower in the corner. You're going to step up and go after it. Tell me where that comes from.
Well, I would say a lot of it was probably founded in a very dysfunctional family and wanting something different. And then from there, just kind of a belief in yourself, you know.
Yeah.
You know, when you start getting out, you spend some time in the Corps, you get success there. You along your life, I think you find that you're an accumulation of the people that have engaged you through your life at different moments. And some you value more, some you may value less. But I think that's what we are, is an accumulation of those experiences, and good or bad, that lead you to become who you are. And so for me, I think that's kind of the thing, is that raw desire to have something different, and then the fine-tuning of that by the relationships of the choice of my life path that I chose.
Yes.
And then that just builds confidence in yourself. You realize you're capable of doing things that you 20 years before you would have never thought you were going to do.
Yes.
And then you realize you become good at it, and that you could share that information with others. And so it's kind of a self-perpetuating event, you know, which I like. So I think it was probably those two things that really drove me to be as driven, or what I call a strategic risk in myself.
Yes.
Because I think that's really, risk is important. I think it's a high value as a businessman. And the more you can strategically plan for that risk, the better that risk is going to be for you. You know, failures happen. You know,
yes.
You can learn from them. And I think if you have a strategic plan for that and a strategic risk that you take that you fell at, learning can happen. Because if you go into a risk without that, then sometimes learning doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Sometimes you repeat that failure again and again.
So let's talk about failure. Let's. When you look back, what are some of the biggest failures that you've learned from?
Well, you know, the most I regret are relationships. You know, the ones that I think I learned the most from is when you let down someone you have high value for, because you aren't able to achieve things. A personal one from my youth was actually when I was moving pipe at such a young age.
Yeah.
You get into the grind of that, and you know, I'm moving pipe in potato fields that are constantly wet. You sink into it. You've been doing it for 60 days in a row. You have to move them twice a day. So one night I just decided I didn't want to do it, and I didn't show up.
Yeah.
And I failed. I failed my employer. And the cool thing about the person that hired me is they knew my family, they knew my mom, and they knew where we were living and the circumstances we were in. They showed up. It was turning dark. It was about 9 o'clock. They picked me up. They drove me out to the field, and they waited with me. They sat in the car and watched me move those pipe. And so that failure was just like a raw, burning, stinging experience that taught me a lot of things about risk and failures. And I still live with that memory today.
Really?
Yeah. And it really was a life-changing event. And, you know, I might have been, some people would argue maybe you were too young to even be doing what you were doing, but it sits with me today. You
Yeah.
know? Yeah, it does.
Well, it's interesting that that person wouldn't allow you to fail.
Right.
I mean, they wouldn't let you stay home.
They didn't allow me to fail,
Yeah.
even though I did.
Uh-huh.
I failed,
Yes.
but they didn't allow it.
Yeah.
And the cool thing about it, which I look back on, is they brought their son, who was about 3 years older than me, with me, but they told him in the car, no, you don't go help him.
Really?
So they sat in the car and drove me back home, make sure I got home safe.
Yeah.
But they waited till I did it myself, and I'm grateful for that experience.
Yeah.
But it was a very big failure in my life.
Yeah.
One of my first, actually,
Wow.
moving out and trying to commit to make my life different.
Yeah. Well, that's cool that they really allowed you to own it.
Right.
And not coddled you and said, well, you know, we'll give you a hand here. You had to own that.
Mm-hmm. Especially because they're probably a family that many of the years were giving me my Christmas gifts in a gift basket. You know what I mean?
They probably were.
Where they probably were. They
Yeah.
knew where I came from. They knew the life I had, and they knew the lesson I was going to learn there would carry forth in my life a long way.
Were you ever able to tell them that?
No, I never did. You know, I think, you know, teenagehood.
Yes.
I learned from that. It never happened again.
That's
but,
right.
But I never was able to reflect back on that. I think as an adult, I'm able to do that on my own. The lady, the mother
Yes.
of this farming family, is who did it, and she's now passed. But yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing how you are impacted by things, and maybe they don't even realize the full impact that it made on your life.
I assume she was doing to me what she did to all of her boys, you know? So
Yeah.
she's just being a good mom and a good parent, and honestly really made a difference in my life from that one experience, that one night.
That's crazy. Yeah. So then you go through medical school, and you're just borrowing all the way along the line, and just there again putting it all.
Yeah, I started at ISU, did my undergrad right
Yeah.
here, took out as many loans as I could. My first year I did get a Pell Grant, which was kind of nice. And then to Iowa, to med school, taking out the max loan as I could. I had a little family at that point, had a little baby and a wife, and we were told not to get a job in med school because you need to commit to that, but I still got a night security job. Yeah. And, pushed through, committed to that, did my residency in a county, kind of ran hospital, kind of the knife and gun club, kind of a county ran facility.
Yes.
And, moonlighted as much as I could, and then I took my first job out here. I'm actually still in the current job I applied for out of my residency. I've been doing the same job for 20 years now. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Mm-hmm. And what is that?
Well, I work here. I bought in and built up the community care clinics that are in the neighborhood, up and down the valley. And so I took my first job with them.
Okay.
And then they brought me on as a partner a year later.
Yeah. Did you end up buying it?
Yeah, I bought in, and then I bought out some of the partners. Then we expanded it. We took it from 2 clinics up to 6.
Yeah.
And then we actually have been acquired by Mountain View, and that's why I'm part of their family now.
Yes.
So,
But you're still in the clinic.
Right. Still in the same building.
That's neat. Yeah. Because I had a friend of mine that said, "Oh yeah, I went to your friend and helped me stitch me up or whatever," and I'm like, You're still suturing and still practicing.
Yeah, practice full time and chief medical officer full time.
That's right.
Yeah.
So then you got through school, came here, got established in business, and grew that. What challenges? I mean, there again, you're betting all on the farm there, and you're high risk. I mean, were there? You said there weren't times where you were afraid or scared or
well, the problem with healthcare and trying to be an innovator there is that it's a very mature business model, kind of like banking.
Yeah,
it's been around a long time.
Yes.
It's highly regulated. It's highly governed.
Yeah.
There's a lot of laws there that restrict a lot of behavior patterns. And the nature of healthcare in America has really nurtured a situation where the actual running and managing of the business really starts to become at odds to the physicians and the actual patient care. And it's kind of this vicious battle between those two things. And so in a market like Idaho, we actually are very competitive, and there's a lot of physicians that feel real strongly about being business driven and being successful that way. So, that culture is real hard to try to even get a footing in the market, let alone grow a market. And so, especially with rules and laws that come down that change and manage that. And so there's many a nights, especially when you're leveraging yourself to do it, where all of a sudden you have a 12% discount on all your payments. And all of a sudden you're like, oh my word, how do we? And that comes random, comes every year. It's done by payers that you have really no control over. And those are just some of the things that can happen to you in this business that you just got to be ready for. The other aspect of this business is that there is no revenue created unless those people that provide care are working. And so you run into a lot of physicians where they're trying to pay for staff and an office and all this facility stuff that they need to cover, but at the same time trying to balance that with their personal life, taking vacation. A doctor goes on vacation, they not only have to spend the money for the vacation, they're spending the money to keep their clinic and their employees paid and covering all those overhead issues without any revenue being created from that service. And so those are the things that you just kind of have to find a way and figure out, but it really is a rough road, especially when you're being really regulated by the state and the federal government on how you provide care, quality markers that you achieve. And, example, Medicare is a program where if you provide service to those clients and you issue in your bill showing your service, if you just put it in wrong, miss one box, they'll deny it without telling you. So, and if you get it set up where your printer just sends everything wrong, you'll get 60, 90 days where you have no income coming and they won't tell you that they're not paying you. And so these are just weird things that just can randomly happen in this business because of this kind of regulation and stipulations that control it. And so, let alone, people coming to markets thinking they can compete and trying to compete with you, which at some point you kind of like because they're your colleagues and you can develop a relationship, and we're here to be collegial amongst our staff, but at the same time they're making it harder for your business to maintain its margins. But I think as long as you provide great care, you focus on the human experience and the personal relationships of the people you're caring for, most of those things, if you have really good oversight, take care of themselves.
So how are you able to have something to give? How are you able to refuel and? Well,
I play hockey.
Okay.
Hit a few people. Get on the ice, throw some pads on. I find that I need to create, not really create, but I find that I need to, I personally start to seek out people that engage me in a way that feeds me. Empathy and altruism, I think, is a bucket, and you have to fill it as you empty it, and it's not meant to hold on to. I think you need to share that like water with people, and when you share a lot, especially in my business where you really are, when you're not in that business model, you're really searching out people that help fill your bucket. And it's kind of funny, it's the human experience of giving that turns and makes you look for the human experience of getting. And when you can find a relationship that feeds you and feeds them at the same time, man, you just hold on to those as best you can. You hold on to them.
But as we were talking the other night, it's hard to find time.
It does.
For those relationships. I mean, it's so difficult. I'm kind of in the same boat where you're just running all the time, and you need that. You need that interaction. You need to take a break every once in a while and connect.
Yeah, I
But-
call it self-care. Yeah,
Self-care.
At some point, if your bucket is one that you are kind of your model of life and the choice of profession and how you provide your expertise is always giving of that bucket, self-care is what drives you to make sure it gets filled.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you have to start making a priority out of something.
That's right.
But it's hard because
Oh.
you also are rewarded from the giving, you know. But
Yeah.
it is something that takes a lot from
Yeah.
you.
People talk about balance.
Yeah.
And I don't know what that is.
It's hard to find, that's for sure.
I understand imbalance pretty
Yeah.
well, but it seems like about the time you get into balance or get into a good flow, life happens, right?
It does. And that's, I think, the part that's really hard to adapt to. I think of life and business really in the same light, in that it's kind of like floating the hoe back, you know, going down some rapids. Is
Yeah.
that you plan, you prepare, you pick the people in your boat, you strategically hit every one of these, but when you're in it, and that water can throw you anyway, and you got to be nimble and quick to adjust to those situations. And that also, I think, feeds you a little bit because of the excitement of those experiences. But and that's what keeps me in business, keeps me excited to be part of it, is those experiences, especially with the people in the boat. It can be hard to find ways to fill your own bucket back up, that's for sure.
Yeah, it seems like the people that you need the most, it's harder to get in front of them.
It is.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, so as you're looking forward in your life, and you're always going full throttle, I mean, what's your outlook? What are you looking forward to, and what's your aspiration in the future?
Well, the Marine in me is really focused on just winning. I just want to win.
Yeah.
And so what life does for me is gives me opportunities to see how I win. And what I look forward to is taking advantages of those moments when they come.
Yeah.
Not only in my personal life, but in my business life, in my physician life, when I see an opportunity that approaches itself in a way that lets me jump on that opportunity, that's what I'm here to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I look at that and just realize that I don't know if that's going to change no matter how old I get.
Yeah.
And I'm hitting that stage of life where you start to look at balance. You reflect back, because I think self-reflection is very important as a leader and in business, is to self-reflect back on things that you're bringing to the table that are positive and negative, and work on those things. But deep down inside, I just really want to win. And so, it's probably not the right thing to say, but it is the truth.
That's right. Well,
Yeah,
I appreciate
I'm going to win.
There you go.
And so that's what I look forward to doing, is winning. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I have the things on my plate right now I'm trying to win at.
Yes.
And in 3 or 4 years, it's going to look different, but I'm still going to be doing the same model of trying to win at it.
So how do you keep sharp? How do you keep learning and growing? Because you're in the administrative position, you're in the active medicine field, you're in business, you're a businessman as well.
Right.
How do you keep that? How do you keep your saw sharp?
Well, I'm a voracious reader.
Okay.
And I read a lot. And my secret there is, if you're in a business model where you're always the smartest person in the room, you're not doing it right.
Yes.
So I try to surround myself by people that drive me and that I know I need to play catch up to.
Yeah.
Those are the kind of people I need to be around, and they keep me sharp. Yeah. Yeah. I think having a good foundation, I think you need to do a lot of research. You got to spend the time in the data, and then you need to spend the time with people that know the data better than you, that drive you, and that's what keeps you sharp.
Oh, that's great. Well, Troy, thank you so much for taking the time today.
Yeah, no problem.
You know, as I think back to our conversation, I'm so impressed with your drive, and you've never arrived. You know, you continue to be driven, and it's not for things. It's not. You're just driven, and you have a love for people, for relationships. You value that like I do. I mean, it's the best part of life, is the relationships that you encounter along the way.
They're the things that feed you. They're the things that you remember. Those are the experiences that set down in your brain as life goes by.
Yes.
And they bring you joy. But it is the human connection that really matters.
Yeah. Well, thank you again.
Hey, no problem.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to Community Connections with Jeff Newgard, where every episode you hear unique stories of your neighbors, colleagues, friends, and community connections. You can find our podcasts on YouTube, iTunes, Stitcher, and other popular platforms. Subscribe to our channel to keep up to date on all future conversations. Equal Housing Lender, member FDIC.